in, give us a chance to share some things.
That's your Instagram handle, right?
That's it.
That's it. All right. That's all right. That's all right. All right. All right. What's going on, everybody? We're in the boom boom room. Get everything together. It's just the green room. So you have questions today. Make sure that you leave questions. You can either press hashtag ask or just leave some questions. But today, you in for a treat. Hey, all the way from the United States to Canada in the house.
Yes, sir.
Vancouver, to be exact, right?
Vancouver, yes, sir.
Vancouver. Man, where Drake at, man? Nah.
Hey, Drake's on the other side, Drake's from Toronto, so it's like New York in LA,
Right.
I do think people think when they think Canada, like, oh, it's right here. Like,
yeah. It's like one spot. It's like, yeah, it's right there. I can see it. I saw it on the map.
Right.
Like years ago, people, oh, you're from Chicago, Michael Jordan? Like, yeah, that's him. Like, that's a real same thing. People think Canada's all one big small city. I don't know.
Right.
Hey, you know what? That's the way it is. I mean, I have no problem with that. I know people say you're from Canada, then they say you must be good people. I'm like, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters, right?
I'm trying to be from Canada then. It's rough in these states. They're acting up.
No, you're not lying.
All facts. All right, I guess we can officially get this show on the road. Welcome to Game Beyond the Game presents Talk That Talk, inspiring conversation with professional and elite athletes, where we inspire our audience as we explore finding vision and purpose in life and discuss tools to overcome life's transitions. Awesome. My name is Stan Pearson II. I am your MC, and we're joined by founder right now, Prince Daniels Jr. Officially, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Anticlimactic. Brought it in. I'm doing great.
That's it.
I love it. That's what I like to hear. So you know how I do. Going to bring on our guests like the rock star they absolutely are. So right now, I want to introduce you all Darcy Coss, who's a former basketball player, former Canadian college basketball player and college basketball coach turned basketball event consultant. And after experiencing a serious back injury that pushed him to reformat his mind, body, and spirit, Darcy is on a mission to change the landscape of basketball. He now looks to help people through his podcast, Back to Basketball, which focuses on injury prevention, athlete training, mindset, personal well-being, mindfulness, personal accountability, and empowerment. Wherever you are, clap your hands, stomp your feet for Darcy Coss. Darcy, how you feeling officially?
Hey, I appreciate the introduction, man. You hit everything. You hit everything. You got all the notes I sent you, so I appreciate that.
Checks in the mail, no problem. For you, anything.
Hey, I'm grateful to be here. I mean, I was able to connect with Prince a while ago, and he said, "Come on the podcast," and I was like, "Let's do it." I'm so happy to be here.
Nice.
Thank you for being here and traveling so far. Well, for dramatic effect.
Yeah,
from Canada. So remind people again, they kind of heard us talking pre-show. You are in Vancouver, which is the equivalent West Coast, East Coast. Tell us about Vancouver. I know a lot of folks have heard things, but just tell us some highlights of Vancouver.
Yeah, you know what? Vancouver is the type of place that it's a rare city in the world because from a natural beauty perspective or an outdoors type lifestyle, I mean, it has everything. And I'm talking about within a distance, like you can drive everywhere, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You can be up in the mountains hiking or skiing. You can be on the beach. It has one of the largest parks in an urban area, Stanley Park, with the longest seawall. It's just amazing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. And that's just Vancouver. Now you start kind of going into the outside of Vancouver, and you'll just see some of the best natural beauty you can find anywhere inside a city, Mm-hmm. And that's the hard part is you can find beautiful places all over the world. There's very few cities that have that natural beauty to them. So Vancouver is special in that regard. It's one of those places that you get out, you land and the airplane doors open up and you walk out and the air hits you differently. It's like fresh. It's like that. You can just, it's fresh.
Yeah, hey, you make me want to visit.
Man.
I've never, go ahead, Prince.
No, go ahead, Stan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've never been there before, but it seemed like I want to say for all intents and purposes, with that kind of scenery and, let's say freshness, that it's good for the mind and body connection. Is that something you'd agree with or can attest to?
Absolutely, absolutely. So not too long, I was doing a bunch of work last couple days, and I was starting to get dragged down because I'm staring at this damn computer screen. And I just drove 20 minutes. There's a suspension bridge with a whole like a rapids, and I just ran through the in the forest essentially. And I was in the city, but I was in the forest at the same time. And then right away, just everything let go. I was able to run for 20 minutes, and then I went and sat down next to the water, on the rocks there, meditated for a bit. It was just beautiful. And that's something you can do here. I can go to a beach. Like the nature is always there, and it's so I'm so grateful to be able to just go and just hit refresh. Like it's almost like a cheat code, You just press the button, just go out there, and you're like, I feel great. So absolutely.
That's dope. I think people underestimate the value of scenery to be able to do what you did. And Prince is also, he's on the West Coast, the United States West Coast, in San Diego. Prince, can you speak to that? I know sometimes we see you on the beach, at the beach, just sitting on the tall, big rocks. Tell us about that.
I'm usually in the mountains, at the beach, watching the waves as they wash away your problems and your worries and your anxiety. Man, as he says, the cheat code. So San Diego to me is just like Vancouver to Darcy, and it's my paradise in America. So even though I said that, everyone don't start packing your stuff and trying to move over here.
Hey, listen, that's what Atlanta did. Atlanta was like, it's amazing, you should come. And everyone was like, we're on our way. It's like, no, relax. We don't want any more. We don't want anybody else.
Too many people, I know. But man, it's a lovely experience, and it allows for you to, San Diego allows for you to connect with nature in so many ways. When you go and check the weather, it's usually perfect every day. So it's hard not to go outside and reset yourself. So if there's anything that's bothering you in life, you go outside, you reset yourself, you get accustomed to nature, then you come back in and you start living your life again. So that's the beauty of it.
Love it. And I guess it's a great transition, when we're discussing, what you've gone through, how you've gotten past, some of those, let's say pitfalls or obstacles that a lot of people may be experiencing. Right. So as an elite athlete, you had some ebbs and flows, but let's start in the beginning. How did you know you were special? Let's go to junior high school, maybe. Was there a moment where you're like, I'm good. I'm good.
Right. And also, did you grow up in Vancouver?
No, well, yeah, I did and I didn't. I grew up in Vancouver, and then I grew up in another city, a small city in the middle of Canada. So I went back and forth.
Okay. And then how is it? So we're in the States, right? How is it growing up in Canada? Like you guys got you have everything that we don't have in the US, and we have some stuff that you don't have. But how was it growing up in Canada? And like, can you give our audience, that visual?
You know what? So like I said, half of my family is from the United States. So I traveled a lot. So I saw both worlds growing up. So I'm very aware of the differences. And the biggest difference, number one, besides there's some small things. Outsiders wouldn't notice them. Someone comes over from Europe, they'd be like, it's the same place. They don't really notice. But outside of those big things, I think some of the stuff that I notice is just culturally. The United States is man, I don't know how to describe the differences, but it's not to say that Canada doesn't have its own challenges. They do, but just culturally, there's this big difference between the two places. Now, you might meet someone from Canada and meet someone from the United States if you're from another country, and you cannot tell the difference. I don't know. You could say anything. People, when I go travel, they right away they say you're from the United States, right? You're from America. I go, I'm from Canada. So they don't know, but there's just these little small cultural differences. So for me, that's the biggest thing that stands out. Because anything you want to do in the United States, you can do here for the most part. There's not much, outside of the certain things that don't exist up here. There's no South Beach in Canada. You can't go to South Beach. So Canadians go to South Beach. We travel there. But, outside of that, it's very much just these small cultural differences that I really feel that only someone who grew up in Canada or only someone who grew up in the United States would know. And from the outside, they can't tell the difference unless they lived in either country.
So you must be talking about Drake, huh? All right. So on to Stan's question, what was junior high and high school like?
For me, so honestly, for me, junior high and high school was tough. It was really tough because where I grew up, when I grew up in two places. So that's the one thing about Canada when I spoke to the culture. So in Vancouver, there's not many Black people. First of all, mostly white people, mostly Chinese people, and then there's South Asian people, and that's kind of it. And in Winnipeg, it was kind of the same thing growing up. Now, when you start going to Toronto, it's what I'm saying. It just culture shifts. So I grew up in places where there weren't a lot of people like me. So junior high and high school was very confusing because people would treat me differently, or I would always get asked, and I still kind of do in Canada sometimes. What are you? Where are you from? Where are you from? You always ask me that. Always ask me that question. Especially in the west coast of Canada, especially out here. I still get that question all the time. So when I was growing up in high school or in junior high and middle school, it was a really tough time for me because I was just trying to find where I fit in, and I didn't really fit in anywhere. So that was always a real big challenge for me. And it was, and to be honest with you, even fast forwarding to now, it's something that's really defined my identity and kind of how I see the world, because I was an outsider, and I have a very I have an ability to kind of like see both sides. Even if I don't agree with it, I can be like, well, I get why they might think that way. And that's from that upbringing that's really affected me, just being that outsider.
That's really thoughtful and insightful. I think that's in some ways it's a superpower, because a lot of folks don't have to see both sides of anything. But it seems like, always being, let's say, on the outside looking in, it gives you a different perspective, not being as, thank you for sharing that piece. Because I feel like when there are people who feel like they're alone, or they are physically, mentally, emotionally alone, understand there's a way to channel that particular piece. So I thank you for sharing that. Did that feeling, let's say, drive you into sports? Were you already into sports?
Absolutely, man. Because you know how it is when you play sports. It doesn't matter where you're from, or no one asks who you are. It's just like, can you play? Yeah. That's all people care about.
Exactly.
Can you play? They don't care. Like, they actually don't care. You know what I mean? And so once I started middle school and then high school, I started playing ball. Started getting really good at it. I grew. I was 5'10", then I'm 6'4". So now it's like, okay, I'm getting good at basketball. And so once I started playing sports, that whole history, how I explained to you, I didn't really fit in. I knew where I fit in. I was a basketball player, and that was kind of how I formed my whole identity. Is just like, I'm a ball player. Nothing else really matters. I can always just say I'm a ball player. And I just kind of went all in on that. Like, it was just leaned hard into that. And there was really nothing else I actually cared about at all. It was just basketball. And that was it.
Well, congratulations finding that place to lean into.
Well, you see that with a lot of athletes, though. I mean, this is just like, I would say, and I think, Prince, you would agree with me, this is just the norm with athletes. You know what I mean? It's you have a lot of athletes, because of similar situations that I went through. You find yourself being good at something and you just latch onto it. And then when you get older, at some point, you're not going to be good at that thing anymore. And whether you're retired or you're, Prince, I know your story very well. If you can't play anymore,
right?
And that's when it can be useful at some point, but you know what? It's not the best way to go about it. If I could, and this is kind of my goal, is if I reach people, if I can reach kids and young men, is to try to get them to understand that there's more than just their sport, and their value that they have as a human being isn't based on them and how they perform on the court or on the field, right? There's more to it. So I get that now. I didn't know back then, but that's something I hope to kind of, implore and help people understand before they get to a point where it's devastating to them.
That's a bar. That's a bar in itself. And you use the word hope. I like to say we don't use that word hope or trying, because that creates that leaves room for doubt. And so you are doing what you're doing. You are making a difference.
Sir.
And so, keep doing that. Keep making a difference, because you're going to continue to keep reaching one child at a time, if not 1 million.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned that identity, and there came a point where I suppose rubber meets the road, I guess, where they say, you're not always going to be in that space, and kind of maybe what drove you to do what it is that you do now. If you wouldn't mind sharing that piece where, I'm done with this part and I'm transitioning here, which now obviously have been consulting, share a little bit of that and what kind of helped you move, your own, personal needle to rising above that noise?
That's a good question, because, to this day, basketball is still what I do. So it's interesting. You said all that, and I'm like, but wait a minute. While you were asking the question, I'm like, I still do basketball all the time. It's like, it's my job. It's how I pay the bills. I'm in that space. But my transition to specifically what I'm working on now, with my Back to Basketball podcast, that all stemmed from me actually not even being able to physically move properly. So that was from an extreme injury. So I had been done playing, doing my event consulting with basketball, and happily doing it. And I've had back injuries in the past. Don't get me wrong. I had pain as an athlete, in college and whatnot. But I never hurt myself that bad. And I hurt myself where my leg was paralyzed. My right leg was paralyzed. Now, not like, where it's like I have a spinal injury paralyzed, but my nerve damage was so bad, the muscles wouldn't fire in my leg anymore. And the pain was just out of control. And, I'm medicating, I'm sleeping on the ground. It was just like the most painful thing. And I was literally disabled at that time. And this is anyone who looked at me would be like, yeah, that guy's in great shape. He takes care of himself. But from that point, when I was like, okay, I have to get better. I don't want to get surgery. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I had to literally reformat my life. And a lot of that, was centered around understanding who I was, because it's hard to take on these challenges unless you've fully admitted who you are, right? Because you can't, it's like if you're being defensive about something, well, you can never actually work on it. And I think there's always a certain level of that with people. But for me, I was in that mode. So yeah, I was active, but I always had pain. I'm always in pain, but I work out, I look great. People look at me, hey, he looks really good. But I knew inside I was in pain. And then the way I was eating, the way I was treating myself, how was I speaking to myself, all these types of things. And I started to go down that road, of kind of rebuilding my body, my mind, my spirit, my emotional well-being. And all those things kind of led to me saying, I've started getting back to where I felt good and better than I was before. And I said, I was alone, or I felt alone during that time. So what can I do to help anybody? I don't care if it's one person. Like, all I need to do is one person and I will be happy. Now I've checked that one person off because I've helped many people, just sending me DMs, saying, hey, like, yeah, I'm struggling with this right now, or I saw this thing you did, or you're inspirational. That kind of stuff right there is the reason why I started doing it. And that was the shift. It was that injury moment where something was taken away from me, my ability just to walk and feel, like I was worth something. And that goes back to that athlete perspective, right? Because I was not playing a competitive sport anymore, but, I worked out, I felt good. Right. And then when that was taken away from me, I wasn't human anymore, right? I didn't know who I was lost. And then I had to refine myself again. And so that was part of that journey, is that was taken away from me. I was challenged, and I'm grateful that I accepted the challenge and I was able to grow from it. And I know that some people don't grow from these moments. And I want to be hopefully there if that person has an opportunity to see what I did, or they hear me, and then maybe they can grow versus, going down that other road where they just medicate or they get hooked on drugs, they just give up and I don't care anymore. And that's how I want to help people, because I was close. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was close, I was close to just being like, okay, like, this is who I am. And I'm grateful that choice is taking me to moments like this, where I get to be in the presence of both of you guys, speaking to people and hope, and not hopefully, and helping people, as you said, Prince.
True. Right, man. You mentioned grateful several times, which is a very powerful word. Stan and I, we had an opportunity to speak about this, about in order to reach a level of greatness, you have to be grateful. And so I see grateful as a tool to help you, right, to keep rising, to another level, till you reach that level of greatness. And when you reach that level of greatness, you express it in the way you walk, and the way you talk, and the way that you carry yourself, and people see it and they're like, wow, like, how'd you get there? And your only answer is like, I was just grateful for just being alive and just being able, to accept the challenge. And that was another key thing that you said, accepting the challenge. A lot of people don't want to accept the challenge. The challenge can seem very difficult. And I know my stepfather, he told me that, whether something is easy or hard, just do it. He said, because when you focus on whether it's easy or whether it's hard, then you are losing or exhausting your energy because you're focused on the outcome when you should be focused on what you have control over. And it's that moment in time. Yeah. So like, what does gratitude mean to you?
I mean, it's everything. You said it, to be great, you got to be grateful. That gave me I felt it. I felt it. Right. That is everything, because I find I'm at my least powerful when I'm not in a place of being grateful. But when I am, I'm at my most powerful. Oof. And that is just 100%. I mean, it's sometimes I love it when somebody says something so simple like that, and it makes instant sense because it's something that you already intuitively knew, right, and you practiced it. But to be able to put it into a small sentence that just makes sense to you, and so it for me, it's one of those things where something as simple as when I write in the journal in the morning, either sometimes before or after meditation. But what I've tried to do with my gratitude practice is I've tried to keep it really simple, so simple that I can be grateful for like the journal I'm writing in, or the pen I'm using, or if I'm sitting down on a yoga mat or in the bed. It's like it. And I've really tried to focus this. Once in a while, it'll be bigger picture things, but it's on the things that I'm physically in the moment using or doing or thinking that are like very, very, very present. But I found when I made my gratitude, focused it on these things that most people wouldn't care about. Most people would throw a pen out the window in a second, but the moment that you don't have a pen and you need to write something down, that pen is so valuable. And it always reminds me of I never know the name of this book, but the Simpsons parody it. It's an old movie, I think, and the world ends. And this guy just has all these books, but then he breaks his glasses, and then he can't read them anymore, and no one's there to fix up the glasses. Like, that's it. And so it's that same idea. If you're present and super, grateful for the things that you have in those moments, just in the moment now, and they can be really small. They don't have to be physical things, right? They can just be my smile, and that just makes me smile, or the fact that I'm seeing the light come in. Somehow I'll be like, oh, I'm grateful for the light that's shining through this window. And that just empowers me. Like, it just makes me feel so powerful, because now there's all these big things that I can kind of enjoy, or that I can take on. And it doesn't matter, because I can find this joy in like a pen, So
amazing. I think that works also for the cynical person, or the cynical when someone finds themselves just feeling cynical, and you're like, no, think about the smallest possible thing, the attention to detail, which is really powerful. So I'm glad you mentioned that. You also mentioned before, when you were running, through the mountains, and you meditated, you mentioned just then journaling, meditation. When did meditation come into play for you? When did you start using, meditation as a tool and a resource?
Yeah, I remember it so clearly. So I don't know if y'all feel like this, but people say, like, you become a different version of your parents as you grow old. I don't know if you've heard this. I've heard this before. My mother's been a meditator her entire, like, as long as I've known. I mean, maybe not when I was real little, but all the time she meditated, and she would tell me when I was a teenager, you should try it. And I was like, get out of here with that. I'm not about to do that, right? And at the time, when you're playing sports, you're a tough guy, emotions, I don't deal with that stuff. Just get it, just miss me with that. I don't need to hear about that stuff. I'm going to go handle it my way with anger and be tough and all that stuff. But to answer the question specifically, it was after a breakup. It was a really bad breakup. And I don't know if I would have done it if my mom hadn't been meditating around me all the time, because she'd come home from work. I got to meditate. She meditated in the morning and after work, like clockwork. That's awesome. And I asked her one time, I remember, I said, why do you do it? Or I asked her one time, I was curious, how do you do it? What do you do? And I think she does transcendental meditation, because she had a what is it called? When you do transcendental, you have a saying, a mantra.
Mantra.
And she would say, yeah, someone has to give it to you and all this. And I remember that question. That was like when I was a teenager. I asked her one time. But if she wasn't doing it, I probably would have never started. So anyways, after this breakup, I just needed something to just calm me, and it was almost like something to replace that, something was missing, or I felt that feeling of emptiness. And that's when I started meditating. And, it was guided meditation, start with 10 minutes. And I would do it every day before work. I would drive to work, I'd sit in my car and I would meditate. I would just do it in there. And that's what brought it on. That's when I started. And this was, I want to say 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And throughout my time up to now, I practiced. Now I wasn't consistent. I was consistent for about a good year, fell off. Other relationships came. I practiced. I didn't practice. But recently, and thank the pandemic for this. I hate saying it, and I don't mean an offense by it, but it's been one of the most powerful times for me. It's just taught me so much more, right? So I was meditating all before, and it was easy for me to just sit down and meditate. But through the pandemic, I've taken it to like another level of just understanding. I've had moments that I can't even describe. I can't describe. I literally can't describe them while meditating. So that's kind of where I'm at now. That's the whole journey. That's kind of the origin story and the whole thing. But that's what got me started originally was a breakup.
Wow, man, you got me giddy over here. I'm like, yeah, keep talking that language. Tell people what the key is, man. It's crazy. It's how people minds adapt. People bodies adapt to a situation faster than their minds do. Right. And so if you show someone, I can show you where $1 million is, somebody, they will never believe you. If you tell someone, hey, there's Jesus right over there, they'll be like, what are you talking about, man? I don't see him. And in the same way, what you're saying, you're giving people and you're sharing with people like the tool to help them become any and everything that they want to become. And you mentioned a lot of key things about journaling, meditating, and these are all the things that we just tend to oversee because our mind hasn't adapted to, the ability is to see ourselves meditate. And I think that's very beautiful that your mom did that every single day, because, in order for you to do something, you have to see something. And, so that's true in everything and in every walk in life. So thank you for sharing that. I just want everybody everyone who is listening, he just gave you the keys and the tools to be able to see within yourself and see what you're made of. So take heed.
It's interesting in these conversations because, especially certainly with athletes or people who compete, let's say generally, let's say it's music. Let's say before the game, talking to some quarterbacks, and before the game, people are listening to music because the music gets them there. The music is how they arrive to being this, like you said, like I'm gonna deal with it my way. And then I mentioned, like, what if you just spent time with yourself? Is it at all possible that there's more within you than there is without you, that goes into you? And even in that moment, that question, a light bulb went off in my head. Boop. So that it's not someone else's lyrics. It's not someone else's beat. And all those things are great. But if the initial contact is within, then you can never go without, which is, again, to your point in strengthening the point of what it takes to be still and hone in all the power within, or as Prince often mentions, kind of the God within and the power within. It literally is like a superpower. So for those of y'all watching and listening, I think the initial conversation, whenever you mention, like you said, meditation, or especially if someone's a younger athlete, like, get out of here, hocus pocus. Nobody does hocus pocus, all right? But how it's really simple and it's relaxing. Real quick, Prince, what took you there? What was, I loved hearing, Darcy mention kind of what his moment is. Do you remember the moment where you decided to take meditation more seriously and commit to it?
Yeah, man, most definitely. It was a breakup, right?
Okay.
But this breakup was with the NFL. And it was something that I needed to lean in on. For there was an absence, a void in my life, and after I was prematurely discharged from the game, I was just left with just sitting by myself and my own thoughts, and my mind saying, "You suck. You lost your job. You let people down. You lost your career. Like you're not enough. Who are you? Like you're not a football player anymore. So who are you now?" Right? Because when you're young, you take on this identity because you realize that you're good at something, and you don't have to lean one way. You don't have to be considered as this color or that color or this person or that person. You lean into sports, and now sports allows for you to have this ability to identify with something that other people are not able to identify with. And for me, I played football for over a decade. And then once it was over, it's like, well, what's next? Like, I don't know who I am. So what's next? And that's when I really started to try to look within myself and find out, what's next? What am I going through? What can I do to better myself, and how can I become the best version of myself? And so that breakup with football created that void within me. And in order for me to fill that void, I took on meditation.
Love it. Thank you both for sharing that piece. It's always great to know origin stories. I think even when people talk about business, life experiences, I think people leave out that question, which is important when you're having conversations that matter. Like, what's the origin? Like, how did this start? Sometimes we leave that out. But I guess speaking of origins, I want to ask you in some way, Darcy, if you ran into the younger version of you on the street one day, what advice would you give young Darcy? What would you tell him? What do you think he may know now that it would have been nice if you knew back then in junior high school or something?
Always the same, and the moment people start asking, I got it already, and I'm actually curious if this is going to change over time. If you ask me this in 10 years or 20 years, it's going to be a different answer. But my answer right now is just, it's so simple: is you are enough, and you're everything you need to be. Because when you're young, you're searching. And I guess unfortunately or fortunately, as we get older, some of us, not all of us, get to understand that we're absolutely enough. And it's so interesting. We go on this journey to find who we are, and we go in a big circle, and we come back. We're like, oh, I'm right. I've been right here the whole time.
All enlightened.
Yeah, you go to change yourself, and then you realize you didn't need to, and that's the whole idea of like, you're enough, in a sense that, look, you want to better yourself, you want to do things, but that inside feeling that you have of trying to like be better, or comparing yourself to other people, or grasping at things that aren't there, that doesn't need to be there. You can just do whatever you want to do. You can pursue whatever you want to pursue. Because you're enough, and at the end of the day, I mean this in the most positive way. It doesn't matter. We put all this value in all these things, and it doesn't matter. And again, in a positive way, it doesn't matter. So yeah.
Whoo! Wow.
Deep in the streets.
It doesn't matter, right? He said it doesn't matter. Who used to say that? Ric Flair. It doesn't matter what you think, right?
No, The Rock. It doesn't matter.
Right? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I love it, man. That's amazing. That's really awesome. I love you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing. I'll throw it to Prince. It's interesting because sometimes, as you mentioned, as you're sitting out there by the water, the mountain beach, or Prince, same thing, or just sitting outside, that is when you realize, like, all this other extra blah, blah, blah really doesn't matter. It's those moments of focus. Or one thing I know Prince has mentioned, kind of like, if you're just sitting in, let's say, a body of water, heck, it could be a tub, a pool, an ocean, and just you never really try to stop the water. And if you do, really what you're just kind of just seeing how the water manipulates around your hand, but it doesn't stress you out. It just is kind of something that's happening. Mm-hmm. And your thoughts can be the same way. And that would allow one to just put the weight down examine those thoughts and let them flow through you. And life turns out to be a little less stressful and anxiety ridden that way as well. So certainly appreciate this collective convo. Prince, I feel like you have something now. What are some thoughts you have right now and questions?
Man, like Darcy, you just been dropping jewels after jewel after jewel after jewel, and I'm loving this, man. And I see you as a legend, and one of the questions that I want to ask you is, what do you want your legacy to look like?
That's not something I have an answer to right now.
You do. Just take your time. You always got the answers. Just like you said, we're on this journey to try to change ourselves, and when in actuality, we need to find ourselves. Because, like you said, we are enough.
Would it be weird if I said I don't really believe in legacies?
No.
I want to hear more.
Like, yeah, right. that's the first time.
I mean, I am someone who cares about definition, so I think it depends on what we define a legacy. Now, if we define legacy as the way people feel about you when you're not in their presence or when you're not around anymore, let's say we use that, then I have a definition. It's just, I just want them to feel, it's weird because I actually don't care. Again, I don't care how people feel when I'm gone. And I say that wholeheartedly. I care about the way that they receive me when I'm there. So if I was to leave something behind that people could see after, or even just what I'm doing now, I am essentially having a legacy while I'm still alive. Someone might come across something and never see me again. That would be kind of a legacy. It's just, I want those people to be able to look at something that I've done or look at something that I'm doing and say, this is useful to me. It helps me in some way. And that's really it. I think when I started the projects I'm doing now, it was because I was suffering, and the goal is to relieve suffering in people. And so I think, and I guess we're answering your question after rambling through it and thinking through it out loud, it would be hopefully when I'm not here, I could say, if I was leaving a legacy, my legacy would be that. It would be, I relieve suffering for people, or I helped avoid suffering in some way. Because I think that's one of those things with humans, like it's part of being a human. There will be times when you suffer. But being able to manage that and being able to work through it. And the thing that I've come to realize more recently is that, and I know there's a saying for this, the suffering is, optional, all that, but the way I look at it is this: you go through the suffering and that's fine, or you go through the traumatic moment, but how you come out on the other end of it is the thing that is the most important. Because I started the conversation when I was talking about what I'm doing is I know a lot of people who have come to the moment that I've been through, and we're sitting there and we're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to, to walk normally, work out, or I'm going to have to take painkillers for the rest of my life. They don't come out on the other side of it a better person. They actually just come out worse off than they went into it. And so that would be the legacy that I would love to leave, is just one where people could say, hey, that Darcy guy, he helped me. And I was here and I ended up being here. And, I'm grateful for that.
Now, what's the other part that you told me and Stan about, like the legacy that you don't believe in? We want to hear some more of that as well.
Yeah, like, so when I hear the word legacy, right away, it makes me think of legacy projects or people who, I want my name to be on that building. It's like a selfish, like, it's not that those people don't want to help people, because if I did so much great things that people wanted to put my name, hey, and I mean, I guess I would be doing great things. But I think there's a different side of it where people are doing it for these other reasons. Like their legacy is, I want the building to be named after me because I was so rich and I made all sorts of money. Mm-hmm. Or, I was just the richest guy. I was a billionaire. I was the best, oil tycoon or things like that. Like that is their goal. And as a result of that, they've left a legacy. And so when you first say legacy, I think of these kind of negative connotations of people who were just influential, but there was never any reason behind it that necessarily help people. Like it's like your intent. Your intent is very important on why you're doing something. And so that's why I kind of talked around it. I was kind of sorting it out in live time, in real time. And I think that's the difference. When I say I don't care about that, I don't really care about, if I'm not here anymore. Oh, how do I feel about that? I don't think that matters. But that's kind of why I brought it back to being alive currently, and a legacy of me maybe only touching someone one time, as long as that interaction was a positive one, or they listen to one of my podcasts. I think that can also be a legacy. It doesn't have to be when you're dead. And so that was the one where I was like, I'm not here anymore. I don't really care. But so I was kind of differentiating between those two. If that makes sense.
I feel that the substance and everything, but also the notion, let's say, to live your legacy. Like who are we when we begin to live in the way that we want to be remembered? I feel like that's kind of like,
that's it.
Like, yeah. Who do we become then?
That's exactly it. Because a lot of people have left a legacy and they didn't live that way. But we look at them like they were great people, but then they weren't. But they just have statues and stuff everywhere. And that's the type of that. Right when you said legacy, that's what clicked in. I was like, that's not. I don't want that.
That's a bar. That is a bar.
I love it, man. I love just thought. I love thought. And I don't always know that. I feel that. Let's say that critical thinking is. I think it's a lost art because we're in a world where so much can be just given to us. Information can be given. Think this way. Oh, believe this. And so critical thought isn't always present. So I always appreciate thoughtfulness, mindfulness, as we had this discussion about the things that actually matter. So absolutely appreciate. Prince, what do you have, man? Any final words or thoughts?
Man, as I'm going through my head and trying to figure out what I want to say for my final words or thoughts, it's just, I'm blessed and I'm grateful to know you, and we're extremely happy and proud to have you on this show. You're so many miles away, but yet you're so close. So thank you so much for your story, your presence, your energy, your spirit, your mind, every single thing, because this allows for our audience to be inspired by the incredible things that you say, and also by your presence. So just you being here allows for everyone to see themselves in you. And so just want to let you know that you're living in your legacy right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Prince. I appreciate that. Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yeah, I was about to ask you to say two things. If you want. Go ahead.
Well, hey, I just wanted to follow up those words with thank you. Feel very fortunate and just feel great to be sharing this platform. And there was not a moment where I didn't feel like I wasn't able just to share. So I love that. But I wanted to kind of bring up I want to kind of say this and thank you, Prince, at the same time. Is Prince and I were supposed to do a Clubhouse talk, I don't know, last week sometime. And I was actually going through a little bit of a moment at that time. And something that I've learned, with as being a human, there's going to be these ups and downs. In the past, I wouldn't have necessarily realized what was happening. And now I can just, kind of forgive myself and say, you know what, it's all good. And you can kind of talk to yourself and just give yourself that grace and that space to kind of bounce back. But I say all that just to share that, when I canceled, I said, Prince, I can't do this, man. I'm going through something right now. And I just want to thank you. You said in the email, hey, no worries, reach out if you want to talk, I'm here. And for you to do that, it just meant a lot, because you know what, we know each other. I interviewed you for my podcast. I don't know you. And for you to do that, because I know we really connected on when we did my podcast, but that just meant a lot for me. And I appreciate those types of actions. And those are things that I've learned, and I'm learning to make sure I do the same. So I appreciate you for modeling that behavior and just allowing me to say, wow, thank you. And so I just want to thank you on air.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah. Well, that's what manhood is about. Brothership, brotherhood. And, Stan and I, we do the exact same thing. This is what makes men stronger. Just to show up, whether you want to ear or just let you know that, hey, I'm available whenever you need to talk. So I'll drop everything and let's talk. Let's figure it out together because we are on an ultralight beam and we are constantly moving up, or we're either moving in circles or we're trying to move up. And in order to move up, you need somebody to pick you up and remind you that, look at whatever you were looking at on ground level. Let's look at it 30,000 feet above ground.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start to see that it's not as bad as you think it is. And so we shift our perspective. We have a paradigm shift, and from that moment on, you don't look to go down unless you want to. You always look to go up. So that's what it's about, man. So thank you.
So Darcy, how can folks learn more about you? Where can they find you? I know we have your social media on the ticker. Where can they learn more about you and your services and connect?
Yeah. So again, best way, Instagram at Darcy Coss. It's Coss, not Cross. So it's COSS. And you know what? All the information will be there. You can also Google Back to Basketball. So it's just BACK and then the number 2 and then basketball. And there you'll be able to see the podcast as well as Instagram handles and things of that nature. So that'd be the best place. Google Back to Basketball or search Darcy Coss. I'm probably the only one on this planet that has that name. And you'll find me in Google.
The original, no need to live as a copy. Make sure you Google Darcy Coss wherever you need to, and also Back to Basketball podcast for sure to stay in contact. Officially, thank you, Darcy, for being here with us, for being so transparent and giving the information you did. Really appreciate you. And for everyone else joining us, don't forget to continue to watch, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Prince Daniels Jr. YouTube page. And you can see us here next week, every week at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Game Beyond the Game Facebook page. So until the next time, make your next move your best move. Have a great one.
You guys have a good one. Peace.